I want to talk about the big elephant in the room when it comes to mixed people, right? Oh, you can tell who has a white mom and who has a black mom. Yeah, you can. The ones with white moms, a lot of times, they're either so aware, like painfully aware of what it's like having a white mom, or so on the other end of the spectrum. Like, there's no in between. So I want to talk about the big elephant in the room when it comes to mixed people, right? Oh, you can tell who has a white mom and who has a black mom. Yeah, you can. The ones with white moms, a lot of times, they're either so aware, like painfully aware of what it's like having a white mom, or so on the other end of the spectrum. Like, there's no in between. And it's painfully true. The one thing, the major difference I feel like, and I've seen another creator talk about this, is like black moms might drop the ball on like regular parenting shit, like as does everyone else, but they never drop the ball. They never drop the ball on raising their kids to be confident in themselves as far as their race. Like, they never let their kids grow up confused about who the fuck they are racially and ethnically. Like, I just don't see it happening. Black women are the most aware of their race and their gender. Like, we literally have to be hyper vigilant about how we experience life. And so black women have to raise their kids in a world where everyone else will be trying to tell them who they are. I feel like black moms are like, no, like, this is who you are, you need to stand in that. White moms, a lot of the time I just see, are so fucking clueless. I'm sorry to say it, but like, they have these kids for sport, right? Like, they're like, oh, like, this black guy is so fucking hot, and wouldn't our babies be so cute? And they raise their kids like not knowing who they are, not knowing how to identify. A lot of times they'll raise their kids around all white people, which is even more confusing. And personally, like, my dad also dropped the ball. Like, we can blame him too. I just feel like it's not fair. Like, I didn't consent to having a white mom. And I wish white women were more careful about who they had kids with. Because you have to transform your entire life. You have to unlearn every fucking thing that you've ever learned if you want to have a child with someone from a different culture. I would never, like, for instance, be with someone who's Asian and be like, but I'm not going to give up any of my prior cultural practices, and you need to assimilate with mine. Like, I would never do that. I would be willing to uproot my entire life to make sure that my kids were accepted, at the very least, within their family. A lot of mixed kids with white moms do not get the same grace. They just don't. White moms, not all, because I know some who do the damn thing, but it's very rare. It's very rare. And I just don't see black moms struggle. Okay, part 2 of the black moms versus white moms debate. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I wanted to post about it because I just haven't posted in a while. Anyways, so a while ago, like, I don't know how long ago it was, I saw several videos about transracial adoptees, and a lot of the time it was minorities being adopted by white people. And they spoke about how they feel like they were just always othered, and like their culture was erased, like their parents didn't even try to understand where they came from, and they tried to raise them as white even though they clearly weren't white. And so it was always just like they were just there, and like they didn't care about what culture they were actually from, and they were like, you're gonna be part of this culture now, and forget about everything that you came from. And that's how I feel, because ethnically I am black. Like, I was raised around white people, but a lot of people don't know what I am. They don't know where I came from. They don't know if I'm Hispanic. They don't know if I'm fully black. They don't know what the fuck I am. As a kid, I didn't know either. I brought that up because I feel like I really identified with the way they portrayed their life. A lot of times as a kid, I felt like I was just like randomly dropped in this family, and I remember there was plenty of times where I was like, Mom, like, am I adopted? Because like people keep asking me, and she's like, no, of course not. Why would you say that? I'm like, I just feel like we're so different. Like, how can you be my mom? Like, I wanted to be white as a kid because I was made fun of for my black features. And so much of the time I was just like, I just don't understand like who I am. I don't understand. And since my parents didn't teach me anything about my culture, I had nothing to stand on. And that really fucked up my confidence. And it's taken me into adulthood to even really feel like I'm the person that I'm supposed to be. I just feel like if I had a black mom, so much of that like racial confusion wouldn't be there, because I know mixed people who have black moms and I could never identify with them. They're always like, yeah, no, never experienced that. Sorry, can't relate. And I'd be like, what do you mean? We're like the same thing. And they're like, yeah, but my mom's black. Like, I'm black because my mom's black. Like, they couldn't relate. And I always envied that. I always envied the relationship that my cousins had with their black mom, with my aunt. My mom never did my hair as a kid. And I literally missed out on that experience, that very tender, like, love between a mom doing her daughter's hair. Like, I never got that. And that also fucked me up. Something about the experience of being a black biracial woman, I think a lot of people don't understand. And that's being fetishized. Now, on a surface level, most black people know what that feels like, and they know what it looks like. However, being biracial is a different scenario. We all know that a lot of interracial relationships happen as a result of fetishization, but nobody talks about what that does to the kids. We acknowledge that biracial people have privilege without acknowledging the fact that we also are still treated less than human. Many white people gravitate towards us because they see us as a more palatable form of blackness. However, there are white people who are more disgusted by the idea of somebody being mixed race and, you know, the white race not being pure anymore than they are with blackness. So they will tolerate black people as long as we stay over there. But then one of me comes around and they're like, wait, I'm related to you, or like my people created you, that's disgusting. So I got interrupted and then forgot to record, but I'm back. So, like I said, sometimes some white people will be more tolerable of a black person with two parents that they're not related to as opposed to a mixed race person. I noticed this a lot in my family. I mostly grew up around my white family with white people, white friends, all that stuff. I did have black friends, but I only had like two or three. And one of them I'm still friends with today that I met in elementary school. But I had very little exposure to my black culture. It was very confusing for me growing up because my white family didn't really know how to teach me about my blackness, so they just never brought it up. And they tried to treat me as if I wasn't any different than a white person, even though I had vastly different experiences than they did. And so a lot of my racist family members, even if they weren't outwardly racist, they still only tolerated me and like my dad, who's black. They never really treated us like we were human. They always treated us as if we were some special guest, even if we were related to them. I don't think some of them could ever come to terms with the fact that their descendants were no longer purely white. Yet if they saw a black person on the street somewhere, or like, I don't know, at the campground, they wouldn't necessarily be racist towards them. But as I've said in the past, tolerating black people is not respecting black people. My problem was I couldn't just step away like black people could. Black people can remove themselves from white spaces and go home and be perfectly fine.
Okay, let's talk about it. Mixed kids who were raised by white mothers versus black mothers. Already I'm seeing comments saying that there is no difference and there's bad on both sides, which is true. There is bad on both sides. Colorism runs rampant within our community. We know that. So we know that there are tons of black women who want mixed children because they want them to be lighter because colorism is eating them alive. But let us not pretend that there isn't a significant difference, generally speaking, between those who are raised by white mothers versus black mothers. There was a mixed creator who made a video specifically on this. I wish I knew who it was. So if you know who I'm talking about, tag them below. But they shared their experience being raised by a white mother, etc., etc. But the reason I made that comment isn't to talk about the white women, because like that's expected. It's to address the black men. We all know that even statistically speaking, it's way more likely for black men to date outside of their race versus black women. It's way more likely for black men to date white women, which means it's way more likely for black men to date white women, have children with white women, and allow their white wives to fetishize their children. That was the point I was making. That's a problem. That's a problem. Nobody is saying that black women don't do the same thing. We all know that that's true. Black women do the same thing. Again, colorism eats us all alive. But you can even notice it on this app. The white women who act a fool. The white women with the fake ass black sense and the caricatures of black women that they try to do. The vast majority of their time, what do their boyfriends look like? They're black men. Like, I'm never surprised when I see a racist ass little white girl and then she pans the camera over to her black boyfriend and I'm like, that's why she thinks it's okay for her to do these things, because she's being validated by this man who's telling her that it's okay. So, in conclusion, let us not pretend that this is not a common theme. Okay? Okay.
If you're mixed and you got a white mom, stitch this.
Okay, I have to stitch this because I don't know why so many people in her comments are upset. I'm stitching her because I couldn't find the original video that she's talking about. But can I just say this entire topic is just stupid, in my opinion. Every mixed kid is raised differently. The way you're raised is influenced by your environment, by your culture, by the country you're living in, by the continent you're living in. I was raised in Russia as a Russian woman. I know I'm black, but I was raised as a Russian woman. If I were to live in Nigeria, I would have been raised as a Nigerian woman, regardless what race my mother is. A black mother living in Africa is not going to raise their child the same way a North American black mother would, or a European black mother. Same goes for white women. You're influenced by your environment. So I really don't understand why so many people are upset and why it's a race issue now.